E1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wenslow with your headlines at 7 o'clock. Some breaking news to start with. Joe Biden's administration has lifted the ban on Ukraine using US weapons to strike deep inside Russia. That's according to Reuters news agency. It's understood Ukraine plans to conduct its first long-range attacks in the coming days. The US U-turn comes after months of requests by Volodymyr Zelensky to allow Ukraine's military to use US weapons. It's not clear if Donald Trump will reverse Biden's decision when he takes office. Trump has long criticised the scale of US financial and military aid to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has no plans to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin. As he said, we need to double down on support for Ukraine with conflicting approaches. The Prime Minister pledged that Ukraine was top of the agenda at this week's G20 summit of world leaders and told reporters that there's got to be full support as long as it takes. Our political editor Chris Hope is on the Prime Minister's plane and has sent this report.
Another week, another globe-trotting trip for our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Last week he went to Baku in Azerbaijan on a 5,000-mile round trip for a green conference. This week, he's off much further, twice as far, to Rio de Janeiro for a G20 summit of world leaders. But it couldn't come at a more important time for the Prime Minister because top of his agenda is concerns about the war in Ukraine and evidence that international support for Ukraine against Russia is flagging. He knows it's important he's there to make that point. Britain has been a firm ally of Ukraine since the beginning of the conflict, 1,000 days ago, this coming Tuesday. He told us on a flight over here, I think it's really important that we double down and give Ukraine the support it needs for as long as it needs it. Also at the G20, he'll make the case for more wider cooperation on controlling migration. That's a key point of why the PM goes on these trips for FaceTime with world leaders. Reports over the weekend say he's looking at an Italy-style deal, maybe to return migrants to where they've come from in return for public money. We're told that that's not necessarily where he is right now, but certainly working more closely with other countries to stop people making these perilous journeys across mainland Europe to the UK is where he wants to get to. Maybe communications schemes and other ideas to work with them. But with migrant crossings up to 32,000 already, up 1/5 on last year, Sir Keir Starmer knows he's got no time to waste to tackle the migrant crisis. Christopher Hope in Cape Verde, en route to Rio de Janeiro.
And in other news, an international manhunt is underway for the husband of a woman who was murdered and found in the boot of a car. 24-year-old Harshita Brella was discovered in London last Thursday after police received a call from a member of the public concerned for her welfare. Police are now searching for Harshita's husband, Pankaj Lamba, but he is thought to have fled the country. A mandatory referral has been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct by Northamptonshire Police because of previous contact with Miss Brella. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
A journalist is visited by the police for a tweet, there's an exodus from X to blue sky, and a professor claims that geology is racist. This is Free Speech Nation. Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. This is the show where we take a look at culture, current affairs and politics, and of course, we'll have the latest from those lovable, cheeky culture warriors. So, a Telegraph journalist is under investigation over a post on social media from a year ago, and the opposition leader, Kemi Badenoch, is calling for a review into hate speech laws. According to a geography professor, the study of the Earth's rocks and natural resources is racist. We're going to be talking about that later on. And we're also going to be covering blue sky and whether it's going to be the new Twitter. And, of course, I've got a fantastic panel here to answer questions from this lovely studio audience. My comedian guests this evening are Paul Cox and Cressida Wetton. How are you both? Are you full of joy, Paul?
No, my life was a terrible mess, Andrew, but the world is on fire. The news is going to cheer me up.
Well, the more the world is on fire, the more work you'll have.
Exactly.
And that's an important thing. How are you, Cressida?
Yeah, no, I'm buzzing. I'm very well. Well, it's all a bit different now Trump's in, isn't it? But
yes,
we'll
a lot of things are different now.
Yeah, they are.
Haven't been as many meltdowns as I would have liked. That's the only thing. People are a bit calm about it, apart from a few MSNBC commentators and that kind of thing. But look, we've got an audience here, so let's get some questions. We've got a question from Mike. Mike.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Andrew. Why are the police visiting journalists about their tweets?
So, obviously, this is the Alison Pearson case. Mike, what do you make of that? Just to reiterate to people, Alison Pearson, Telegraph journalist, obviously she's been on GB News many, many times, is a regular, visited by two police officers on Remembrance Sunday morning. They said she's, for a tweet that's over a year old, but they didn't... She actually asked what the tweet was, what the substance of the tweet was. They said, we can't tell you that. We'd like you to come in for interview. She said, who is my accuser? And they said, it's not your accuser, it's the victim, and so on and so forth. What do you make of this, Mike?
I think it's appalling that they're not prepared to initially say what it's all about. She thought it was a non-crime hate incident, I think.
Well, that's because
the police are saying it was actually a racial incitement.
So there's been some confusion about this because in Alison Pearson's original article, she said that she thought the police had said to her it was a non-crime hate incident. Actually, they released the transcript. They did say an incident, so you can see where the confusion started. But they also said it might be a crime, it might be stirring up racial hatred. And this is a tweet that was long deleted, it's over a year old. And I just want to ask the question, a lot of people are sort of defending the police here. What business have the police, Paul, in investigating anyone's speech and thought at all, let alone a journalist?
I think there are very, 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 very few instances where the police should be involved in anything like this, if at all, actually. My fear and my own opinion is this is all about the control of information.
Right.
And they do it, and the thing that's terrifying about it is they do it under the guise of protecting us.
Yes.
So we are controlling the information so that you are protected and nice and safe. And of course, one person's hate is another person's scientific fact, or one person's lived experience.
I mean, why should Alison Pearson be put through this? And it is a horrible process where they come around, because you've got no choice. You either go to the the police station for an interview, or they can seize all of your devices, go through everything. For a journalist, that's a problem because you need all your work materials.
No, it's a huge problem. We should never be in this situation. And the reason I mention control is because up until this point in history, all information has reached us via a controlled method. There's been an editor, a mediator, a moderator of that information. Now we can all put information out on social media. Now, she's a journalist, an esteemed journalist who is entitled to her view and is an educated person as well. I think she could probably do without an editor. Now, I'm not suggesting, I've never seen the tweet, I don't know what the tweet is, I'm not defending the tweet, but if she doesn't know what the tweet is and we don't know what the tweet is... Then
well, The Guardian has reported what they think is the tweet, and, you know, it's a tweet that some people might find offensive. So what? I mean, I really mean that. Like, why...
I know what the tweet is.
What's it got to do with anyone, let alone the police?
Great point. And the problem is that these kind of laws, or is it, I mean, to your point, was it a crime, wasn't it? That's another topic. But they can be policed sort of subjectively, can't they? Not everybody that's done a tweet that somebody hated a year ago is being investigated.
Well, the criterion seems to be offence. So, in other words, someone phones up and says they feel offended. Of course, that is inconsistently applied, because a lot of, you know, feminist campaigners, for instance, have contacted the police and said, look, there are trans activists threatening my life, or saying things in protests that are stirring up hatred, and the police do nothing. But they do go after people who get misgendered. So, I mean, there is some double standards being applied here. And also, not telling Alison Pearson the substance of the tweet when they visited her house. I mean, there is a novel called The Trial by Franz Kafka.
It's exactly like The Trial.
It's the opening scene of The Trial. That's what happened.
That's exactly
Two police
what it
officers
is.
turned up to arrest him. He says, what have I done? They said, you don't need to know.
And Joseph Kay didn't have a body cam either. And honestly, for all my family this year for Christmas, I think I'm just going to get them a body cam each. Don't get out of bed until you've put your body cam on.
It's the new Links Africa.
She doesn't have the transcript that the police have got, which I think is really infuriating. You know, she was obviously in a state when she got arrested. It must have been incredibly stressful, and then afterwards didn't have exactly the words.
No, that's right. She wasn't arrested, by the way.
Sorry.
They've said that they are potentially investigating.
Yes.
There's a lot of confusion about this, but ultimately I think once the police are visiting people for something they've tweeted, I mean, that's a sign of authoritarianism rising, and we need to be vigilant, I would suggest. OK, let's move on to another question. This one's from Alex. Alex.
Is Blue Sky going to be better than Twitter?
Are you on Blue Sky, Alex?
No, I'm not.
Would you want to go to Blue Sky?
I don't think so. I'm on Twitter, and I've seen a few of the comments of people that have been on Blue Sky and had to leave or been kicked off of Blue Sky for, you know, voicing their opinions.
Well, it's quite easy because X, as it's now known, X rather than the Twitter, since Musk took over, obviously the idea is that it's a free speech platform, and as a result of that, you see some pretty unpleasant things, and the solution to that is to block them and ignore them, and then problem is solved. But the people who have migrated to Blue Sky, they believe that they only really want to be confronted with opinions that are similar to their own. They never want to be offended. And what's interesting is just the other day, a screenshot was taken from the Blue Sky official account saying they cannot keep up with the number of complaints, reports about other Blue Sky posts, whatever they're called. So, in other words, Cressida, the kind of people who've migrated to Blue Sky, in their thousands, lots of Taylor Swift fans, apparently, they're all busy reporting each other because someone said something that slightly disagrees with them.
I think they're very busy boys and girls.
Yes,
and
non-binaries.
And non-binary, of course, yeah, quite right, Andrew.
Be careful.
And many other genders, of course they will. Luckily, I'm not on it.
Yeah.
If I do go on it, I think I'm going to have a sock puppet account.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it?
I call myself the people.
There's that graphic, by the way, of Blue Sky saying in the past 24 hours we've received more than 42,000 reports. Wow. And to put that into context, in all of 2023, they received 360,000. I mean, they've had this massive exodus because of Trump's victory. And a lot of people seem to think that the way to address losing an election is to do precisely the things and double down on all the things that made you lose the election in the first place, which is not talk to anyone with a different opinion and just call everyone racist. That seems to be the tactic there.
Oh, it is the tactic. It's all they've got, it would appear at the moment. There doesn't seem to be any intelligence implied here.
No, I think there's an IQ test to get into Blue Sky, and if you reach above 60, you're not allowed in.
I mean, its strapline is essentially that it's a heavily moderated social media platform. So, to entice people in. That's the first thing that puts me off. It's basically a safe haven for adults that still breastfeed off their mummies.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And The Guardian has sort of very high-handedly announced, we are leaving X, you know. So did Clifton Suspension Bridge and Museum, by the way. Been a lot of candle vigils for that. But I think Guardian, very... and they put out this really pompous editorial saying, oh, it's Elon Musk's X is a haven for far-right, evil, hate speech and all the rest of it. So they're going to pop off to Blue Sky and be read by even fewer people.
Well, yeah, exactly. What are they doing? It's not like they've got loads of readership. I think it's ridiculous.
Does anyone take them seriously anymore, The Guardian? Not really.
Absolutely. It feels like something that would have been written in the 90s as parody a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, they have sort of become a parody of themselves.
It's very much part of our educational institution, though. My daughter's doing GCSEs, and we went along to a session that is guided for parents to help her revise, and they suggested that to keep up with latest news, that we follow The Guardian.
Wow.
As parents and as a child, The Guardian.
No,
there were people in the room who knew what I did for a living and were
the problem with this
looking
is
at me.
There's a thing on X that Elon Musk introduced, which is called community notes. And what this means is that when a journalist or a public figure posts something that is factually incorrect, misinformation, then they get hit with a note explaining where the falsehood lies. The Guardian has been hit with this multiple times because it often misrepresents the truth for ideological purposes. And that might be the reason why they're leaving, because they're fed up with being accurately fact-checked. Is that not the case?
Perfect, yes. So they're going somewhere where they think they won't be fact-checked. But, of course, we all know that there's no such thing as woke enough, so it'll only be so long before...
Yeah, you know, my advice to The Guardian would be just tell the truth, and then this wouldn't happen to you. All right, that's free advice you can have there. What do you think, Paul?
Well, I totally agree with you there. I mean, one thing I would say, I'm really enjoying James Dreyfus snapshotting his tweets on Blue Sky and putting them on Twitter because of the sort of feedback, you know, the vitriol he's getting on there.
So he's on Blue Sky?
He's gone to Blue Sky and he's attempted to have an opinion, and then he gets just inundated with this vitriol.
Hilarious. He'd be banned, though, almost immediately.
I don't. He may well be banned by now. I hope not, because I'm enjoying
He'll be banned because he'll say something factual and they'll get upset about the real world. OK, let's move on now to a question. This is from... who is this from? Who wanted to ask the next question? Anyone? Ah, yes. What's your name, sir?
Tony.
Tony, what's your question?
Should the Welsh Labour government be changing the beliefs and behaviour of the white majority?
Interesting. That sounds nuts, but the Welsh government has actually pledged to implement what it calls an anti-racist strategy. They say they're going to eradicate racism by 2030. Good luck with that.
It's like net zero now, isn't it? Racism zero.
I mean, you know, none of us approve of racism, and wouldn't it be a wonderful world if it didn't exist? However, you're dealing with a thing called human beings and human nature. It's not possible to eradicate racism anywhere, let alone Wales.
No, I agree with the Welsh government, Andrew. You're completely wrong. All white people are bad. They've got a hell of a job on their hands, though. 94% of the Welsh people are white.
Yeah.
So basically, there's just 6% left that are now the empowered minority.
Luckily, this new strategy, it involves demolishing statues of old white men. There's that. They're also creating dog-free zones because they think dog areas aren't inclusive to minorities.
Finally, that's.
I suppose it's not good for cats. You know, if that's who they're protecting.
No, it's not. What do people who identify as cats do with that? That's going to cause an issue.
I mean, really, what the hell are they doing? I mean, the Welsh government is absolutely crazed. It's like ideology on steroids. It really is insane.
And also, as always with these things, anti-racism is looking like racism awfully quickly, isn't it? The idea that your skin colour determines whether or not you like dogs. I mean,
the idea that ethnic minority people can't be around dogs. Unbelievable. You could just say the most racist things and call yourself progressive. What the hell?
I love the article. I read the article earlier today, and the picture is of the First Minister. I don't know, it's a white lady, I think. Well, there's a white lady in the article leaning against her. Yeah, I know, terrible. Straight away, I thought, red flag. I'm not reading this, bloody white people. Leaning on a fence in the countryside, which is also racist. The countryside is terribly racist. So there's a white person in the countryside talking about racism. I don't think it can get any darker today.
I think that's a passage from Mein Kampf, if I recall. Outrageous stuff. Let's move on to Anita. Anita, hiya.
Hi. Will Trump end the war?
Will Trump end the war? Wow. Well, he thinks he will. I mean, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because he's the least hawkish president of the 20th century. 21st century, rather. But, I mean, do you think... I mean, obviously, Biden has now we've just had the news that he's approved the long-range missile shooting from Ukraine deep into Russia, which is something that Trump would not have approved. And I know that Macron was sort of colluding, I think, with Starmer to try and get that approved. What do you make of Donald Trump's chances of... He says he'll end the war in a day.
Well, People like Putin, I think, do like a strong man, don't they? I can imagine him sitting around a table with Trump more than Kamala Harris.
You can, because there was that photo of Putin where he's walking hand in hand with a bear. Do you remember that?
Well, there you go.
And then there was the other one where he was bare-chested on a horse.
Yes.
Very homoerotic.
Well, it's homoerotic, but it is also manly. You can have both at the same time.
His brand is very sort of Nuts and Zoo magazine, 1992, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but a bit closety as well.
Yes, oh, absolutely. So I wonder whether both Zelensky's come out and said he thinks Trump will end the war, and whether him and Putin are both thinking, oh, thank God, a chance to tap out, you know, a reason to let this come to an end. Because there's been that idea that Putin didn't want to go to war for this long in the first place, you know, and all the yes men around him said, yeah, it'll be over in 6 months, and of course it's...
And I suppose the problem, well, maybe, you know, when you've got someone like Trump, when he says, well, we might just bomb you, you sort of think, yeah, maybe he will, like, because he's not all, you know, he's not the most sensible gentleman.
Well, maybe not. I mean, the idea that we're worried that Trump might stop a war, I find quite amusing as well. Yeah, what are we supposed to say now? Because Trump wants to stop a war, war is good. Interestingly, you both call Vladimir Putin, don't you? Which obviously sounds like a mobile toilet. But
that is his name, Paul.
But I always say Putin just to save him an embarrassment.
I think you're mispronouncing his name then.
Yeah, but I'm very concerned about embarrassing Putin.
OK, you're saving Vlad. We're saving Vlad's blushes there. Look, it's the final week of our Christmas giveaway, so we're on the countdown to the big day. You could win £25,025 in tax-free cash, shopping vouchers and also GB News Christmas gifts, which are very beautifully modelled on our website. But you have to hurry, because time is running out. Here's how you could win Christmas on Us, delivered in time for the festivities.
There's just 38 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
And next on Free Speech Nation, more on that Alison Pearson story, the journalist visited by the police for a tweet from over a year ago. I'm going to be speaking to Free Speech Union Director Toby Young about whether free speech is indeed under threat. Don't go anywhere.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's speak now to Sales Director at Savills for Quinta Properties, Raquel Santos, who is live for us in Portugal. Raquel, good to see you this morning. Why are all these celebrities flocking to Portugal all of a sudden?
Yeah, I guess it's just because of basically the great lifestyle that we have, security, you know. Portugal has kind of been a hidden, tucked away gem for quite a while that people didn't realize existed. And with the international flights that, you know, with the American flights coming in, it's kind of been put back on the map as a country that's worth visiting and worth investing in due to the secure investments that we offer in real estate.
Raquel, is it anything to do with tax rates? Because I think capital gains tax is, I think if it's over a certain amount, you pay half of your rate, which is 28%. Capital gains on shares and cryptocurrencies is 0. Is it anything to do with that? Because over here in the UK, big storm at the moment about millionaires apparently leaving in exodus because of the mooted increases in taxes in just a few weeks.
Yes, so obviously the alterations that are happening with the UK in terms of the tax that's being implemented on the capital gains, as you mentioned, we've definitely noticed has become a big drive, mostly on the vendor side as well, who are looking to sell because they don't want to be hit, you know, with these higher capital gains, which is close to coming into effect.
Raquel, have you noticed then millionaires, high net worth people from the UK getting in touch with you looking to relocate?
Definitely. It's for multiple reasons, obviously, the changes that are due to come into place, obviously, and Portugal just seems to be a safe option always when things do kind of change. People opt to come into Portugal because we're quite steady, we're quite stable.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. Essex police have been accused of an appalling attack on free speech after launching an investigation into Telegraph journalist Alison Pearson in regard to a post on social media from over a year ago. So we're joined now by the founder and director of the Free Speech Union, Toby Young. Toby, welcome to the show. I understand that you are supporting Alison Pearson at the Free Speech Union with this case. For those who don't know, can you just give us a bit of a background to what happened?
Yes, so Alison Pearson was visited by two police officers on Remembrance Sunday in the morning. And they said that, according to Alison, she recalls them saying that they wanted to interview her at the police station because they were investigating a non-crime hate incident. Subsequently, Essex police have said, no, she got the wrong end of the stick. We want to interview her about a tweet she posted over a year ago, which has been reported to us as a hate crime, and we're now investigating that. But whichever one it was completely ridiculous and a prime example, I think, of the kind of thought policing that's becoming all too common in Starmer's Britain.
Now, I read the transcript that the police have released from the body cam footage. It's quite clear that the confusion lies in the fact that they used the phrase incident. They said it was an incident or potentially a crime of inciting racial hatred, and she interpreted that as non-crime hate incident. I don't think it's a big, major controversy here. I think it's just crossed wires. But even if it were a non-crime hate incident, or whether it's a non-crime hate incident or an attempt at stirring up racial hatred, neither should be investigated. Like, she hasn't done that. She's not racist. She didn't post anything racist. Why do the police feel that they have to get involved in this kind of thing?
Well, the police... so when Harry Miller, the ex-copper, who I'm sure has been on your show before, when he sued Humberside Police and the College of Policing, the arm's-length body that devises national policing policy, he had a non-crime hate incident recorded against his name in 2019 for posting a kind of a gender-critical verse on Twitter. He sued Humberside Police, the College of Policing, and as part of that case, someone from the College of Policing submitted a witness statement in which they set out the rationale for recording non-crime hate incidents. And incidentally, Andrew, we estimate that about 250,000 have been recorded in England and Wales alone since the concept was introduced by the College of Policing in 2014. That's an average of about 65 a day. The rationale is it's based on the work of an American social psychologist called Gordon Allport, who wrote a book in 1954, I think, in which he came up with the concept of the pyramid of hate. The book was all about what we can do to prevent another genocide. It was in the wake of the Second World War. he and other social psychologists were thinking about that problem. And he came up with this idea that if you allow people to say disparaging things about members of out groups, that if you don't nip it in the bud, if you don't punish people, penalize them in some way for saying something stigmatizing, demonizing members of out groups, that will inevitably lead to an escalation, a kind of chain reaction. And at the pinnacle of the pyramid of hate is genocide. So, you know, hurty words at the bottom, extermination, ethnic cleansing at the top. There's no empirical evidence to support this hypothesis. And when Harry Miller FOI'd both the College of Policing and every police force in England and Wales to see, well, have you done any research? Is there any evidence that actual hate crimes have declined since you started recording non-crime hate incidents? And they said, they were puzzled. They said, of course, we haven't done that research. It wouldn't be possible to cut and dice the data we've gathered in that way. And of course, they weren't interested in testing the hypothesis, because that's not the real reason. The real reason the police go around putting the frighteners on journalists like Alison Pearson for wrongthink, it's just to penalise people for challenging progressive, woke public morality. If you say something that supposedly upsets or offends a member of a sacred minority group, or if one of their kind of white savior-like custodians takes offense on their behalf and they report that to the police will investigate you. And if they decide that no crime's been committed, they'll record it as a non-crime hate incident. And that can follow you around. It can appear on your criminal record if you do an enhanced criminal records check in some circumstances. And it's just designed to penalise people for flouting the new public morality.
So can I ask specifically about that? Because bearing in mind that Harry Miller, his offence, or non-criminal offence, was to have retweeted a poem that someone claimed was transphobic, and somehow they're linking that to genocide, are they? Did the police explicitly mention this so-called pyramid of hate in their response?
Yes. The person who Harry thinks was responsible for inventing the concept of non-crime hate incidents submitted a witness statement in Harry's court case on behalf of the College of Policing and invoked the work of Gordon Allport to justify nipping this kind of episode in the bud to prevent it escalating into a hate crime.
So can I ask you, Toby, surely at some point, some politician somewhere on either the left or the right needs to stand up and say, we need to make it illegal for the police to investigate non-crime. Why has that not happened?
Well, the Free Speech Union did engage in a lobbying effort in the last Parliament to try and persuade its allies in the House of Lords to table an amendment to the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act, which would have scrapped NCHIs. We weren't able to persuade them of that, but nevertheless, the act was amended, and it created an opportunity for Suella Braverman to at least introduce a code of practice via a statutory instrument limiting how many NCHIs the police can record. They're now only supposed to be recorded if there's a real risk that the episode in question, the person responsible, might engage in committing an actual hate crime, and they're not supposed to record them against children. They have been recording them against children, something else we've read about in the past week or so, and they're supposed to be mindful of the impact of recording NCHIs on free speech. But the Free Speech Union submitted FOI requests to every police force in England and Wales late last year to discover whether they were in fact recording fewer NCHIs since this new code of practice had been introduced, which was the purpose of the code of practice. And the answer wasn't just no, the answer was actually we're recording more. And in Essex, for instance, where Alison Pearson lives and where she was visited by the police last Sunday, the number of NCHIs being recorded since the statutory code of practice was introduced has increased by 14%.
That's absolutely incredible. So would you take this as evidence of ideological capture within the College of Policing? The fact that the College of Policing seems to have ignored successive Home Secretaries' new guidelines, as well as a ruling from the Court of Appeal?
No question about that, Andrew. I mean, we find it over and over again that regulatory bodies, arm's-length bodies, quangos, large charities, that entire world completely captured, completely enthralled to radical progressive ideology. And they genuinely believe that it's their job to root out racism, transphobia, homophobia. They need to engage in kind of large, wide-scale social engineering. They need to punish people who in any way flout that new public morality, and they're as dogmatic and inflexible as the church was 200 years ago.
Well, I think it's a very good time for people to join the Free Speech Union. Would you mind telling us how they might do that?
Yes, by all means, go to www.freespeechunion.org/join, and our concessionary rate is £30 a year, full membership £60 a year, and it'll be the best money you've ever spent if you ever get into trouble. Incidentally, Andrew, the number of members we had on July 3rd, day before the general election, was around 14,000. It's now about to pass 22,000. We've increased in size by 50% in the past few months because of the unbelievable authoritarian tenor of this government.
Well, sadly, I can't say I'm surprised. Toby Young, thanks ever so much for joining me. And next on Free Speech Nation, should there be a review of hate laws? Please, don't go anywhere.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's going to be turning colder for all of us as we head into the new working week, with some sleet and snow in the forecast for some of us, and plenty of blustery showers around as well. This is all thanks to this area of low pressure that's moving in from the northwest towards the UK as we go through into the start of Monday and Tuesday. Back to this evening though, a bit of a mixed picture across the UK. Plenty of cloud, some outbreaks of rain sinking their way south and eastwards across the southern half of the UK, but further north staying a little bit drier. Plenty of clear spells around, some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. These likely to turn to sleet and snow over the hills, and it'll be a really chilly start to the morning across parts of Scotland, perhaps as low as -4 or -5 in places. So this could mean some icy stretches, so do take care during Monday morning's rush hour. But further south, a bit of a milder start to the morning, plenty of showery rain around, this perhaps turning heavy across southwestern parts of England. For Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, generally a bit of a drier start to the day though, some sunny spells as we go through the morning. But for Scotland, despite the bright start, it will be a really chilly start, so do take care if you are on the roads during Monday morning's rush hours. There could be some ice on some untreated surfaces. Those sleet and snow showers continue to pile in across northern parts of Scotland throughout all of Monday, and that initial area of rain across the southern areas clears away to the south, but this next area of rain arrives across parts of Northern Ireland, most likely falling as rain, but we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as we go through Monday afternoon. Some sunny spells across eastern areas through the afternoon, but feeling really quite chilly here. Temperatures only around 2 or 3 degrees, but just holding on to that milder air further south. To start on Tuesday, we could see some disruptive snow across northern parts of England, most likely falling over high ground, but there is a chance that we could see sleet and snow to lower levels, so do take care if you are out on Tuesday morning. But Tuesday afternoon, there should be plenty of sunny spells around, but still plenty of blustery showers, particularly across the northern half of the UK, and it will be feeling cooler as we go towards the middle part of the week, with temperatures well below average for the time of year.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. So, according to a geography professor at a leading university in London, Queen Mary University, the study of the Earth's rocks and natural resources is racist and linked to white supremacy. Catherine Youssef said the hard science subject of geology was riven by systemic racism. So joining me now to discuss this is reader in financial mathematics at King's College London, Dr. John Armstrong. Welcome to the show. John, can you tell me, you've experienced this kind of ideological madness within the realm of mathematics, people saying that the study of maths is in itself a form of racism or whiteness. Now rocks. Can you tell us what's going on here?
Yeah, well, one thing I should be clear on is that she isn't trying to say that rocks themselves are racist.
Well, that's a relief.
What she's saying
I've got a rockery, it's a problem.
What she's saying is that people are being racist to rocks.
Yes.
This is the problem. And she calls this biocentrism. Okay. So she's criticising the binary divide between the biological and the geological, which is making us disrespectful to the inanimate, apparently. And she's suggesting that we need new models of kinship that will permit a rock in the family.
I understand. So, now, of course, Catherine Youssef isn't here to defend herself. It does sound crazy, and I'd love for her to come on the show and try and explain this. But is this just one of those very niche theories that is developed within academia but isn't really taken seriously by the academy generally?
Well, that was my initial reaction. That was my initial assumption. But she is a professor at Queen Mary, so it's not just some junior academic. And in actual fact, this movement to decolonise our curricula, and decolonisation is, you know, she's taking a decolonial perspective, is being driven by bodies such as the Quality Assurance Association of Higher Education, which is demanding that decoloniality is incorporated in all geography subjects. And her theory, as bizarre as it seems, it comes from critical theory.
Yes.
So she's fundamentally opposing science. So one of the other things she says in her book is that we need to turn geological sciences away from their empirical foundations. And that's a very explicit statement of saying that she no longer wants to incorporate science.
Yes.
And to me, that's quite shocking, but I looked at what the Quality Assurance Association for Higher Education said, and they talk about colonial Enlightenment science. So for the actual standard within geography teaching is to treat science as colonialist. And against this, they say that we should be teaching progressive theoretical perspectives, such as critical theory. And what I find very disturbing about this is that we're probably all looking to geography departments to lead the battle on climate change. And you would really hope they would be using hard and serious science, and yet the Quality Assurance Association it very explicitly says that they should be coming up with new ideas to tackle global warming through critical theory.
But this is a major problem across academia. I mean, we have lauded journals such as the Scientific American claiming that sex is a spectrum, that it's not binary. Well, you know, a 5-year-old can tell you that's wrong. So perhaps 5-year-olds are more intelligent than people who write for the Scientific American. But I doubt it. So isn't the problem here that some of the most supposedly intelligent, learned people in the world are now peddling superstitious nonsense?
Well, it's definitely pushing in that direction. So Scientific American is a magazine, it's not a journal, but Nature is pushing decolonisation. So that's a very prestigious journal.
There are certain peer-reviewed journals that are. Definitely.
Oh, absolutely. But we should be clear that peer-reviewed journal doesn't mean a great deal. If it's a peer-reviewed journal in the humanities, it's still likely to be rubbish.
Yes, because it depends on who the peers are doing the reviewing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's still a great deal of extremely high-quality science being done in universities, but we are under pressure to incorporate these ideas. So at my own university, they introduced a thing called the King's First Year, which was intended to be compulsory for all students. That was the plan. They canned it in the end. But all students got taught these kind of critical theory perspectives. And we're being asked to do this, every single subject. So this is the real problem with what's being required by the QAA. They want these aspects of EDI, education for sustainable development, all of it based in critical theory, introduced across the curriculum. And that's just going to lead to dumbing down and lower quality across the board.
Well, this is a very bad story, Dr. John Armstrong, but thank you for joining me to explain it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So next on Free Speech Nation, should there be a review of hate laws? Please do not go anywhere.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
We all know that pensioners will freeze to death this winter because of the cruel cut to the winter fuel payment, rising council tax, the energy price cap going up, all of that. Now, instead of looking after them, we appear to have a government that seems to want to make their lives worse. Now, they might not care, but you do. And thanks to you, I have now raised more than £270,000 for Friends of the Elderly. You have raised more than the entire amount they gave away in grants for the most desperate pensioners last year. So amazing effort. Thank you very much. Now, I said I'd do a freezing cold swim to raise awareness for how cold some pensioners will be in their own homes this winter. And on Saturday, I went to Stickle Tarn in the Lake District. I'd like to give a massive thank you to the people who turned up to meet me along the way. I would also like to give a monumental shout out to the wonderful camera crew. We've got John Clark and Joe Scowen, and our health and safety maestro, known only as The Stag. I come up with these crackpot ideas, but it is down to those wonderful people to make them actually happen. I would also like to give you a little warning. There are aspects of this footage that you will not be able to unsee. I am aware that at times my body resembles a bag of milk. But you know what? If me embarrassing myself helps to raise a bit more money, then so be it. And you can go to justgiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors now to donate.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. So, Tory leader Kemi Badenoch has urged the Prime Minister Keir Starmer to review hate crime laws in order to protect free speech. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has said, police the streets, not tweets, following a rise in police investigations into what they call non-crime hate incidents. Children as young as 9 years old are among the people being probed by police over insults in the school playground and posts online. The Home Office is now reviewing how police record non-crime hate incidents, while police forces across the country say they're acting in a proportionate way. But is investigating non-crime hate incidents a good use of police time? Well, we're joined now by political commentator Andy Williams. Andy, thanks ever so much for joining me. My understanding is that you are in support of the recording of non-crime hate incidents. Is that correct?
I am in certain circumstances. I think I'm not a free speech absolutist. I don't think that people should have the right to say absolutely whatever they think or feel on social media platforms like X. You know, on platforms like that, you have a responsibility. You are a publisher. And I think you need to be thoughtful about what you say. And if you're promoting hate speech, if you're inciting violence, inciting racial hatred or otherwise, I think that's a problem. However...
Sorry, Andy, just to clarify the point. So, of course, incitement to violence is already illegal. A lot of the problem comes when it comes to defining this term hate speech. Can you tell us what you mean by hate speech?
Well, I think gets to the heart of the problem, is that different people would give you a different answer to that question, which is why I'm in favour of a review with caveats. I'm in favour of a review of hate laws, because I don't think even police forces are on the same page on this issue. My concern is that this could end up being a politically charged, politically motivated review. Kemi Badenoch obviously has her own idea of what a good outcome of that review would look like, and I'm sure Keir Starmer does too. So what I think we need is an independent review with independent people from an independent body to look at it from scratch. In short, my definition of hate speech would be anything that is, and I know that sort of inciting racial hatred or violence is already a separate law, but anything that is manifestly hateful. Now, the problem is that different people have different views about what that is. So I do accept that it's tricky, it's a grey area.
That's the problem, isn't it? Because you've just given me a circular definition, which, of course, is not usable in law. So we've had the European Court of Human Rights, we've had UNESCO all say it's not really possible to agree on a mutually agreed definition of hate speech. That being the case, given the problems you've just outlined very clearly about the potential politicisation of this, wouldn't it be just best if the police didn't get involved in what citizens of the UK say and think?
Well, I don't think the status quo is viable, because there's obviously a difference of opinion between police forces, there's a difference of opinion between politicians and the police. There needs to be, I think, some really clear guidance laid down. I don't think you can just say, oh, put it in the too difficult box, it's complicated, and run away from the problem. You know, I'll give you an example. I was on a train about an hour ago, and some people who'd left the England-Ireland game early were chanting about the IRA. They were chanting in favour of Tommy Robinson. Now, is that hate speech? I'm not sure, but certainly it's something that I think is unacceptable in a public place to be chanting, because it was clearly aggressive. They were clearly making a point that, you know, a racist point in terms of Tommy Robinson, and I think that's a real challenge. So how do we police, and I mean police in terms of literally police forces, but also how do we define these complicated areas?
I think the question, Andy, though, is who gets to decide? I mean, a lot of people would say that they don't find those sorts of chants offensive, and that maybe some chants that might be more in line with your political views, they would find offensive. So how do you set up an arbiter who can be completely impartial and can sort of overview the very notion of what hate might be?
I don't have a great answer to that question. I think it's obviously there's a challenge in finding the definition of independent would again vary depending on who you spoke to. But as far as possible, I think we need to find a way through this. I don't think we can just say, walk away. People should be allowed to say and do whatever they feel like. As I say, I'm not a free speech absolutist. I don't think that works in practice. I think we have to be mindful of the impact that speech has on other people, and therefore we need to find a way through this complicated problem.
So which do you feel is more of a risk, just historically speaking? People saying things that others find offensive, or empowering the state to incarcerate citizens for what they say?
Well, I think that's a false dichotomy. I don't think it's one or the other. You know, obviously I'm not in favour of a thought police of a 1984-style state where we are locking people up for posting things or publishing things that we don't agree with. But I think there have to be limits. I really, really strongly feel there have to be limits. If you are doing and saying things that are just manifestly causing problems in society, and I'm not just talking about upsetting people, but I'm talking about having an impact on people that is just way beyond their, you know, what is acceptable.
So I think we should dig down into that. So that's very interesting. So you've drawn a distinction between purely offensive speech, which I think we can probably agree on balance can't really be policed because it's too subjective, to actual real-world harm. But what is the evidence that mean, nasty, even racist tweets online result in real-world harm?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends is the answer. Now, let's look at the riots, for example. I know that there was a huge blow-up of people after the riots who were saying, we've ended up with these people being imprisoned in some cases for a couple of years, 2-3 years, for tweets. Well, actually, firstly, I don't feel sorry for those people whatsoever, because what they were saying was disgraceful and beyond the pale. Now, you're going to say, well, that's your view. That is my view. And I think that the evidence that they cause problems is that the riots were exacerbated manifestly and factually by some of the things people said online during that period. There were people who whipped up specific instances of violence, of disorder in specific locations. And I think that's a very clear example of where we need to have limits around this.
I mean, I don't think it is. I mean, I agree with you that what they said was disgraceful and beyond the pale, but I don't agree that they should be incarcerated as a result of that. And I would actually suggest there is no evidence whatsoever that any specific tweet caused any specific real-world violence. If you have any evidence, I'd love to hear it, but I haven't heard any so far.
I've not compiled a dossier on that, but I think it's very clear that there were a number of instances during the riots in specific towns and cities where violence took place that wouldn't have happened. There was a direct causal link between what some people are saying online and incidents that happened.
Where's the evidence for that, Andy? Because no such evidence was presented in court in any of these cases. So where's your evidence? Where are you getting this from?
In that case, why have they been imprisoned?
That's a very good question. That's what I want to get to the heart of. Now, the point is, of course...
Andrew, all I'm saying is that you might disagree with this. I trust our courts more than you and I to make that call. Now, other people might disagree with that.
It's not that I disagree. It's just that there's been over 6 decades of research into media effects theories, and we know that there is no direct causal effect between what people post online or indeed what people consume in popular culture and real-world harm. That's been long discredited, which is why it wasn't introduced in any of the court cases. Let's take, for example, Lucy Connolly. She posted a very horrible tweet that I agree with you was appalling, 31 months in prison. There is no evidence whatsoever that her tweet led to any violence, and that has been conceded by the prosecution. We are basing all of this on speculation. What I'm asking you is, can theoretical speculation be sufficient to empower the state to impose draconian jail terms on individuals for the speech they choose to utter?
Well, I think it's tricky. I think it's a complicated area. And of course, I think 31 months is a very long time for someone to go to jail for something they posted, however despicable it might have been. I reiterate, I don't remotely feel sorry for this individual. I think you have to be careful about what you say and how you say it. I genuinely do not feel, I don't care. She's gone to prison and it's, you know, if it maybe is not quite proportionate, I do think, you know, you reap what you say. So I don't feel sorry for her whatsoever.
So if the criteria is simply that you and others like you find what they said rebarbative, if that is the criteria, might it not set a precedent whereby a future government might say, well, criticism of the government's policies is hateful. And look, we've got some legislation here that means you're going to prison. Does that not concern you?
I understand that, and that does concern me, but I don't think that's likely to happen. I think all of this nonsense about Keir Starmer being some authoritarian person who's going to sort of take us down the road of you know, not being able to say anything in the thought police, I think is just a load of overblown.
Okay, you might trust Keir Starmer, but there might be a future government or a future leader you don't anticipate, who maybe you wouldn't trust.
I understand that. I've studied history, I've studied political theory. I totally understand all of the parallels and all of the challenges. I really do. What I'm saying is, and you might know the Lucy Connolly case. You probably do know that case much better than I do. Why is it that she has gone to jail? There must have been a reason.
Andy, I'm afraid we're out of time. Thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate that. Join us in a moment for the rest of Free Speech Nation.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to a latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's going to be turning colder for all of us as we head into the new working week, with some sleet and snow in the forecast for some of us and plenty of blustery showers around as well. This is all thanks to this area of low pressure that's moving in from the northwest towards the UK as we go through into the start of Monday and Tuesday. Back to this evening though, a bit of a mixed picture across the UK. Plenty of cloud, some outbreaks of rain sinking their way south and eastwards across the southern half of the UK, but further north staying a little bit drier. Plenty of clear spells around, some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. These likely to turn to sleet and snow over the hills, and it'll be a really chilly start to the morning across parts of Scotland, perhaps as low as -4 or -5 in places. So this could mean some icy stretches, so do take care during Monday morning's rush hour. But further south, a bit of a milder start to the morning, plenty of showery rain around, this perhaps turning heavy across southwestern parts of England. For Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, generally a bit of a drier start to the day though, some sunny spells as we go through the morning. But for Scotland, despite the bright start, it will be a really chilly start. So do take care if you are on the roads during Monday morning's rush hours. There could be some ice on some untreated surfaces. Those sleet and snow showers continue to pile in across northern parts of Scotland throughout all of Monday, and that initial area of rain across the southern areas clears away to the south, but this next area of rain arrives across parts of Northern Ireland, most likely falling as rain. But we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as we go through Monday afternoon. Some sunny spells across eastern areas through the afternoon, but feeling really quite chilly here. Temperatures only around 2 or 3 degrees, but just holding on to that milder air further south. To start on Tuesday, we could see some disruptive snow across northern parts of England, most likely falling over high ground, but there is a chance that we could see sleet and snow to lower levels. So do take care if you are out on Tuesday morning. But Tuesday afternoon, there should be plenty of sunny spells around, but still plenty of blustery showers, particularly across the northern half of the UK. And it will be feeling cooler as we go towards the middle part of the week, with temperatures well below average for the time of year.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
But it turns out there's a growing number of grandparents who are now taking up the hobby.
And not all of them are male. 7 million gamers are aged over 50, 7 million of them. And we're going to introduce you to one this morning. Her name's Kath Bowie. She's 76 years of age, and Kath has become a worldwide star of the game Fortnite. Good to see you, Kath.
Hello, good morning to both of you.
Morning.
And tell me this, Kath, is Bowie your real name?
Bowie. Yeah.
Bowie.
Yeah, it is my real name, yes.
And you do it a Bowie and not a Bowie?
It's a Bowie, yes, definitely Bowie, yes.
Bowie or Bowie?
Bowie.
Bowie.
But that's not what the Jim Bowie was called, or Jim Bowie was called in the Alamo. He was a Bowie.
No, but that's what I'm called, Kath Bowie.
Oh,
She's their own superstar.
You are your own superstar. You are indeed. Well, so we're led to believe, Kath, that there's nobody else like you, or very few people like you, but there is. There is lots of people your age, your stage, doing what you do.
Yes, there's not a lot that streams. Okay, Fortnite, but there's definitely plenty that plays. Any game, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be Fortnite. It can be any game.
So Kath, how did you get started in all of this?
Oh, yeah, well, that's 7 years ago, actually. I walked into my teenage grandson's bedroom and just saw him playing what I now know, of course, what I play is Fortnite. And that was the very first week that Epic had released it. And it was just really love at first sight.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Plenty more still to come on tonight's Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. But first, the news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines. First, Joe Biden's administration has lifted the ban on Ukraine using US weapons to strike deep inside Russia. That's according to Reuters news agency. It's understood Ukraine plans to conduct its first long-range attacks in the coming days. The US U-turn comes after months of requests by Volodymyr Zelensky to allow Ukraine's military to use US weapons. It's not clear if Donald Trump will reverse Biden's decision when he takes office. Trump has long criticised the scale of US financial and military aid to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has no plans to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin, as he said, "We will need to double down on support for Ukraine." The Prime Minister pledged that Ukraine was top of his agenda at his week's G20 summit of world leaders and told reporters that there's got to be full support as long as it takes. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has hinted that the UK will start paying countries to do more to stop migrants entering the UK illegally. It comes amid reports the government is expected to announce an Italian-style immigration deal with countries like Kurdistan and Vietnam. The Times reports the Home Secretary is preparing to pay millions of pounds to countries to fund more preventative measures, stopping migrants from journeying to Britain. Despite scrapping the Conservatives' flagship Rwanda plan, Labour is said to be modelling their immigration policy on that of Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's deal with Albania. When asked directly about paying countries to stop migrants leaving their countries and heading to the UK, Sir Keir Starmer said anything else we can do to stop people leaving in the first place is the right thing. In other news, an international manhunt is underway for the husband of a woman who was murdered and found in the boot of a car. 24-year-old Harshita Brella was discovered in London last Thursday after police received a call from a member of the public concerned for her welfare. Police are now searching for Harshita's husband, Pankaj Lamba, but he is thought to have fled the country. A mandatory referral has been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct by Northamptonshire Police because of previous contact with Miss Brella. And a cold weather alert covering most of England is in place ahead of an Arctic chill set to sweep across the UK. The Met Office has issued snow and ice warnings for up to 20 centimetres of snowfall. There are yellow warnings for snow and ice in northern Scotland until tomorrow afternoon. A second yellow warning in northern England and southern Scotland applies from Monday night until Tuesday morning. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Let's get some more questions from the audience. Our first question in this section comes from Anton. Anton.
Should trans women be able to play cricket with their peers?
Should trans women be able to play cricket? Well, this is to do with the England and Wales Cricket Board, who have they're under pressure at the moment over unsafe transgender policy in cricket. The idea that men who identify as women can still play in women's teams at grassroots level. Still going on, Cressida.
Still going on.
It's various sports organisations. Some say, we're not going to have that. Some say we are. Ultimately, shouldn't we just go back to a blanket rule of men in men's sports and women in women's sports?
Well, that's what I would like, Andrew. And what's interesting about this story is there's been some research, like a poll of the people who this affects, the parents of the girls who would be playing potentially with biological males, and they've said, no, we don't want this.
Well, sure.
Which is... Well, it's just good to have some evidence, is it, to back up and say...
It's the case of... It's not just fairness, is it? There is the potential for injury in certain sports.
Absolutely.
And, it's very strange, this one, isn't it? Because again and again, we keep getting told that this is a big controversial issue. It strikes me as just a no-brainer.
Well, it is a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm running out of things to say. This comes week in, week out. I wish I just did it to all sports and we could have the conversation once, but it's dribbling across every aspect of our society, and it always impacts children. And these girls just want to get on and play cricket, and it's anyone who identifies as well, which is such a vague term, which means that Dame Edna Everage could start playing cricket for a girls' team.
Well, I mean, you say that, it sounds ridiculous, but there are people of the same sort of stature as Dame Edna Everage playing against teenage girls, and you just sort of... I mean, what's very strange about all of this is, we've got all this policy, public health policy even in hospitals, governmental policy, sports policy, prison policy, accommodation in hospitals, all sorts of things, based on this idea of gender identity, based on the idea that there isn't such a thing as male and female, but that we all have these kind of sexed souls, essentially. And when Jackie Smith, who's the spokesperson for the government in the House of Lords on equalities, was asked, what is your definition of gender identity. That was in the House of Lords last week. She didn't have a definition. She couldn't give one. And she actually said, why don't you take this more seriously, to the questioner? Well, I would suggest that Jackie Smith isn't taking this seriously. If you're going to implement all this policy for a thing you cannot define, then why is this even happening?
It's appalling, isn't it? It's like saying, look, just say the thing, just be nice, don't cause a fuss, and ignoring girls' safety, fairness. I know it's been said a lot, it's the end of women's sport, isn't it?
Yes.
Sooner or later.
Yeah.
Well, it's the end of women.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we don't seem, you know, I'm quite serious here. For decades and decades and decades, women fought for their rights to be, for their equality in society.
Yeah.
And if we go back 100 years, they didn't have equality in society.
Yes.
If we go back 15 years, they very much did. And now it's been eroded away, where it's almost we've gone, well, you've got too much equality now. We need to introduce men.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, sorry, Cressida.
Well, it's just that it's loopholes, isn't it? Loopholes are for wrong-uns. It's not people in good faith that we're worried about. Once you create an opportunity for somebody who's acting in bad faith, they'll go there.
But even if it was someone who genuinely, for whatever psychological reason, believes they are authentically as much of a woman as you are, there's still potentially a risk in women's sports.
That's correct.
You know, and it's very strange. There's an open invitation here to Baroness Jackie Smith to come on and define gender identity, but since she was so reluctant to do so before, I doubt she will accept that invitation. But why not have a bit of courage and come and talk to me about it? That'd be interesting. OK, let's move on now to a question from Alex. Alex.
Hi. How did police protection for a Gaza debate at Durham University become a victory for campus free speech?
Yeah, this is a bizarre one. So basically, these students, they wanted to set up this debate. They were forced to rely on protection from police and security guards because they were having a debate on the Gaza conflict, the extent to which Hamas is responsible for the conflict. I would suggest mass murder and kidnap does put you in the bracket of responsibility. But anyway, let's have the debate. Why not? I think anything should be up for debate. Lots of people were very angry about this. They tried to shut the debate down to the extent that people had to have police protection. You know, universities should be able to have debates about sensitive topics, shouldn't they?
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about this endlessly, haven't we, on this show? What is the point of going to university if you can't be exposed to debate and ideas? I would want my money back.
All those people that stood outside, tried to intimidate people from going to the debate, what they could have done is gone to the debate and made their opinions known. And if their opinions were more persuasive, if their arguments were more convincing, they would have won.
Yes, and historically, protesting people are frustrated because they can't be heard.
Yes.
They're not people that have said, no, I don't want to be heard in that way.
Yeah. This is a real problem, isn't it? It's just this instinct to stop discussions from going ahead so that you don't have your ideas scrutinised.
Very much so. It's, we spoke last week about this. It's very much like a childlike perspective on the world.
Yeah.
There is no adult or parent involved, and I mean this in a psychotherapy way, in any of these discussions.
Yeah.
They just want validation. They just want their side to be heard. And if they don't get that, they will tantrum to the point that you need police for the other side of the debate simply to be heard.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I know that a lot of people have made the argument that students are more like consumers these days because they're paying such extortionate fees. You know, when I was at university, I didn't pay anything because I had a full grant.
Likewise.
Now, you know, isn't it the case, though, that ultimately at some point the vice-chancellors of these various universities have to have the chutzpah to say, if you don't like it, leave. If you don't want to hear other people's opinions, just go and do something else. University isn't for you.
The reason that's never going to happen is it's become entirely commercialised now. So since 1997 onwards, Tony Blair suggested that absolutely anyone who's going to be a success in life must go to university and get a degree.
But that's not true.
Well, it's absolutely not true. We know it's not true. However, that seemed to be the doctrine of the time. And the result is 30 years later, everybody goes to university. They're all paying exorbitant fees to go to university. Those chancellors of the university cannot say to their paying customers, if you don't like it, go away. One thing I would say is Durham University in particular should be applauded for allowing this debate to go ahead, even though it took the police to do it.
I think that's true because a lot of universities fall back and say, well, we can't afford the security. And at least Durham have, you know, persisted with this one. But it was Durham University, wasn't it, where a lot of students claimed that their safety had been threatened by Rod Liddle giving a talk, making some jokes at a dinner event.
I wouldn't feel unsafe around Rod Liddle. I think I could outrun him.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. And I've been around Rod Liddle. He's a very nice guy, and he's not remotely scary whatsoever.
Yeah.
But even if he were built like Hulk Hogan or whatever, I'm sure he wouldn't lash out. It's his words, it's his jokes that apparently upset upset people. And again, when that happened, I did sort of think the university should just say, just leave then. Like, really, I do think that's what they should do.
Absolutely. It's not for you. It's like a comedy club. If you can't cope with the jokes, maybe do something else. You know,
Yeah,
go
sure.
to an origami evening. It's just not for you.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Anyway, let's move on now to a question from David. David, hi.
Hi. I've been watching with interest the American election. And since,
Haven't we all?
yeah. And since Trump became president-elect, that interest has moved to surprise, following some of the appointments, and then on to genuine concern. So my question is he appointing the right team?
So, David, what do you think? Are your concerns around the idea of Elon Musk being on the official team? Is it to do with...
Well,
who
if
is
Musk is going to run the efficiency of the government, when he took over Twitter, he got rid of 50% of the staff.
He did, yeah.
Which is a good start. The head of defence is a guy that is questionable. The one that's looking after internal security and intelligence is very pro-Russian. So, there's some issues like that. I just wonder.
Very interesting. Paul, what do you make of this? Because, for all the leftists talk of the need for progressivism, he has appointed the first ever female chief of staff. That's a start, isn't it? A lot of people, there are debates about the validity of the various picks that he's chosen. But some would say that people like J.D. Vance, who gives a sort of intellectual heft to
He does, I think. Yeah, J.D. Vance.
He's a very smart guy. He's avoided people that that have upset him, basically, Mike Pompeo and the likes. But, some of these people, Tulsi Gabbard, some of them are quite impressive people, aren't they? Or do you share David's view that they're a bit too ideological in their own way?
One thing I will say is I'm not surprised. David, you said you were slightly surprised or, you're concerned by what's happening. It's not like he's been not signposting this all the way throughout his election campaign, particularly with the top names. So, like Tulsi Gabbard, very intelligent Democrat, by the way, trounced Kamala Harris in her primary back in the day when they...
Not difficult, to be fair.
No, to be fair, I may have done well against Kamala Harris.
But what about, like, Robert Kennedy Jr.?
Well, Robert Kennedy Jr., again, not a surprise, but an ideologue and a sceptic when it comes to vaccines and sort of a very much a disliker of the COVID vaccine. But you know what? He has. It's not as again. I don't find anything he says particularly off-putting.
What do you think though about Marco Rubio or Elon Musk? I mean, the accusation is that because Elon Musk was such a big donor to the party, that there's an unethical element to this.
So the Elon Musk one's really interesting. I'm not surprised, and I'm definitely not surprised he's in charge of efficiency. This is the guy, by the way, on Christmas Eve, wandered into a data warehouse at Twitter and just cut the wires and said we don't need it. After telling them we don't need it, and they're all out of a job and they didn't need it, and they've carried on fine without. However, he is the richest man in the world. He has probably helped bankroll Trump to the presidency, and there will be a conflict of interest whether I or anyone else likes it or disagrees with it or not.
Although that said, Kamala Harris had 3 times the financial backing.
She had $1 billion, by the way. $1 billion just to hang around with celebrities.
Well, I'd pay $1 billion to hang around with Beyonce.
Yes.
Fair. Why not? Why not? What do you make of this?
I think Rachel Reeves must be panicking because all that stuff this week about her CV, she lied, she said she'd been an economist, and Elon really has done it before, hasn't he? He says he's going to be efficient, and we've seen it before.
Oh, he knows how... I mean, I think with David, you mentioned Twitter, firing all those people clearly was a good thing. They didn't need them. I mean, Twitter had its Trust and Safety Council, which is... That's the most chilling phrase ever imagined.
Yeah.
And they were there to censor. That's crazy.
So, OK, conflict of interest, yeah, it's a fair point, but I'm excited about it. I want to see him get in there and get his Javier Milei-style chainsaw out and...
Well, this is the problem, when they talk about the deep state, and I don't like the phrase because it sounds so conspiratorial. You start imagining these sort of like a coven of Satanists who run the world, which is how some people use the phrase. But I also think what it means is basically the kind of ideologues deep within the civil service or within those sort of quangos or the various government departments. And they do exist. And we've seen them in this country. We've talked about the College of Policing earlier. So this is something that is real. If you want to call about the deep state, that is something that needs to be rooted out,
well,
surely.
Well, it's such a good point, because what have we just had? Other ideologues.
Well, we've got civil service in this country, civil service members who will ignore instructions from the elected government because they don't agree. How is that not being purged here? And surely that needs to be purged.
And that was going to be my point, exactly that. You do need someone much stronger on the other side of the argument to now counteract what is now deep set within the civil service across the Western world.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be required. I think it's a bit like the immigration issue to some extent, right? We all really know, even if we don't admit to ourselves, that one of the greatest ways to deal with it would be deportations. None of us feel comfortable with deportation as a word. Well, some of us don't, and none of us really think it can happen.
Illegal immigrants.
Yeah, illegal immigration. Sorry, I don't just mean people.
Just want to clarify.
We got some legal immigrants in our audience. I don't want them to be taken out right now.
Yeah, just don't want to clarify. I want to clarify something.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right about illegal immigration. Now, you know that you've got to be strong-handed in counter to the things they're ideologically opposed to. Now, I don't think that should go so far that you start eradicating people, or you start eradicating all policies that keep people safe. But if you're going to vote for Trump, he came in on a mandate that said he was going to do this. Now, the only way he can do this is with JFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, and anyone else who supports his view.
It all seems a bit sitcom-y and a bit, you know...
It's hilarious.
It seems a bit... and yet a lot is at stake. But then, on the other hand, you've got things like the other week we were talking about FEMA, you know, the sort of aid agency who were dealing with people during the hurricane and trying to save lives. And you had a senior member of staff put out an instruction saying don't rescue anyone if they've got a Trump sign outside of their house. Now, that sort of thing is what we mean by deep state, isn't it? That's what's going on.
It's outrageous.
It's really bad, but they've got to get rid of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, people have to know that they can't do that. And same in this country. You know, you've got to have NHS staff not saying, you know, not denying that there are men on women's wards, even when there's an accusation of sexual assault. That's happened on one ward. The police turned up and said, you know, we're investigating a sexual assault, and the staff said that cannot have happened because there is no male on that ward, because they were told that they had to say that. That's what we mean. These kind of secret regulations that are put in place but are not voted in by the government or instructed by the government. As I say, college of policing, very good example. Non-crime hate incidents are not a thing that came from the top. They were invented by activists within the body that trains the police. And that should trouble us all, I think. I'm on a bit of a high horse tonight, but, you know, it's all annoying me a little too much. Let's move on now to a question from Felicia.
Could lower the tone a little bit. What do you think about adding beef fat into McDonald's fries?
Are you a fan of McDonald's?
No.
No, well then it doesn't really affect you, but it doesn't affect me because it does affect me because I'm vegetarian. So I will know if they... Right, so this is Robert Kennedy Jr.'s idea. Now, his idea is that tallow, beef fat, which is how they used to cook McDonald's chips, I think, should go back in because it's more healthy than the oils, the kind of oils that they're using. Do you think it's a good idea, Alicia?
Well, I like beef fats in my chips, with fish and chips, but not McDonald's.
Yeah, but apparently it tastes better.
Better.
Yeah, OK. Well, on those grounds, that's fair enough. And, you know, I should have a reason not to eat McDonald's anyway, I suppose. What do you think about this, Paul? Because this is Robert Kennedy Jr.'s idea that, you know, he wants to... Basically, there's all sorts of things. He's talking about how he wants to force Coca-Cola, to replace their sugar with cane sugar so that it's healthier. Do you think there's something to this?
Well, I'm a consumer of all these things, as is body evident.
I wasn't going to say that. I think you look great.
And beef fat was a nickname for a while. But
well, now you call yourself the People's Gammon.
Yeah, I had to, just to move away from it. I wanted to go more pork.
OK. Well, I think let's move away from that. But there is a point here, isn't there, that, you know, I've been told by various people, I don't know how true this is, that the reason why we're all so fat is that we have these, firstly, ultra-processed foods in our diet, but also these oils, rapeseed oils like that are not particularly healthy. I mean, it's true that when you look at photographs from beaches in the 60s and 70s, no one's overweight. And they did eat dessert, and they did eat sweets.
They did.
So something's happening.
Something is happening, but I think that I would say that the reason most people are overweight is that they eat too much and don't move enough.
Yeah, but that was the case back in the 60s and 70s.
Interesting. I don't know if they had access to as much food as we did. I think it's quite an interesting debate. It's a really good point. Let's imagine for a moment, just for the case of the debate, that they ate exactly the same amount as we did today.
Yes.
Then your point would stand, or your question would stand up.
It's a question because I have no expertise whatsoever.
Yeah, good. That's what I wanted to clarify. It's the first time I've ever clarified anything, Andrew, so...
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me. But, yeah, interesting point to make. And if that's the case, then we really should be looking into these things.
Yeah.
I think it feels to me like within big food, certain parts of food or certain ingredients have been made bad, and we don't know why. They just say, that's bad, and we all go, yeah, it's bad.
Well, it's cheaper. So the oils that they're using in McDonald's is cheaper than tallow. That's my understanding anyway, Cressida.
I think that's right.
So maybe, I mean, it will put off vegetarians, but that's fine. Like that.
How's your vegetarianism going? Mine's in a bit of a quandary these days.
Oh, is that right? You're teetering, are you?
Well, I've
You're
started
being
eating
tempted.
fish again, partly because of all the online protein bros, and partly, I don't know, support the farmers. I don't know.
But fish are really stupid.
Well, that's why I can eat them. I don't feel
If you want to support
bad.
the farmers, just buy some fish and kill them, but you don't have to eat them. You know.
Do it live on air.
What's the question? How's he getting on?
Well, he's gonna change
I think he's a really interesting appointment because there's a whole range of things he's going to change and look at.
Yes.
And I like this stuff where they're kind of not afraid to challenge Big Pharma. That's exciting.
Well, what I'm really interested in is the denial. So I found this tweet the other day, and it linked to a New York Times article, and I had to check that this was real, and it is real. This is a direct quotation from the New York Times criticising Robert Kennedy Jr. It says, Mr. Kennedy has singled out Fruit Loops as an example of a product with too many artificial ingredients, questioning why the Canadian version has fewer than the US version. But he was wrong, and here comes the fact check. The ingredient list is roughly the same, although Canada's has natural colourings made from blueberries and carrots, while the US product contains red dye 40, yellow 5 and blue 1, as well as butylated hydroxytoluene, or BHT, a lab-made chemical that is used for freshness according to the ingredient label. So that's the New York Times fact-checking Robert Kennedy Jr. and proving him entirely correct.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on there?
Are they hoping that you won't read the whole thing?
Well, it's a mouthful. I'll grant them that, but they're literally saying...
Well, this is we're very privileged here, because I think we've got higher standards in this country. But various things I've read over the years, if you're reading about pesticides in America, it's not necessarily relevant to a UK audience.
Right.
We've got different rules.
But I wouldn't fact-check someone and then prove their point.
Mad.
Like, what's...
Well, what's interesting is that obviously somebody who's passed an interview and got up and been out his tie his shoelaces in the morning has written that. And then thought, well, I'm going to publish it as well, and made himself look like a clown.
Do you think, though, it might have been a joke that they thought the sub-editor would take out?
Maybe. I don't think so.
I honestly wonder whether it could be.
I think you're being very kind in doing so.
Are they really that stupid? Do you think they might just be that stupid?
I don't think it's... see, these people aren't stupid in the true sense of the word. What they are is entirely indoctrinated, and all of their opinions are validated. So it's like the Emperor's New Clothes, right? They can say anything they like, including that nonsense, and they will be validated, so they will believe they're true.
Yeah, but they're saying Robert Kennedy Jr. is wrong to say there are chemicals in this product. There are no chemicals except for all these chemicals. Honestly, I'm not in a good mood today at all. It's getting out of control. It is the final week of our Christmas giveaway. We're on the countdown to the big day. Yay! Santa Claus and all that. No, I'm happy about all of that. The big fat man with the, he eats too much of the
I'm over here.
processed foods. But you could win £25,000 and £25, even if you find the big fat man who comes down the chimney a bit creepy, as some of us do. So you can win that in tax-free cash. That'll give you a bit of a silver lining to the depressing holiday period. Shopping vouchers, GB News Christmas gifts, all of that stuff. Just think you won't have to buy anything for these people we call family, who we don't really like, but we have to hang out with at this time of year.
Good point.
But hurry up, because time is running out, and here's how you could win Christmas all on us, delivered in time for the festivities.
There's just 38 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, next up on Free Speech Nation, should the arts be political? I'm going to be speaking to Rosie Kay all about that, so please don't go anywhere.
Forbes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
This is a topic very close to my heart. I have become fully convinced that social media, smartphones are one of the primary causes of mental health problems in children and many other serious problems beside. Lots of governments are starting to talk about this, but the Australians are well ahead in their use of legislation. What do you think about this issue?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I've got 3 young children and I'm really concerned about... I mean, they're too young to be on social media, but I'm really concerned about what lies ahead for them. I'm not sure I support what Australia's doing, not because I don't think it's a good idea to ensure that age verification is right. I'm just not sure that the age 16 is appropriate. But that's progress. If we effectively, as I do, accept the point that we need some sort of control, then we can move to a proper debate about whether that's 16, 14, 13, whatever it may be. And, of course, there are age restrictions on things like Facebook. I think, from memory, it is 13.
Yes, but it's a tick box.
But it's a tick box, so all you can do is you can just knock. If you're 11 years old, you can just predate your date of birth by 2 years, and you can get on. I think what Australia is proposing is interesting because it will stop young people, maybe without their parents' knowledge, short-circuiting the system because they're going to be asking for proper age verification and ID. That's definitely something we should do in the UK because it's enforced in the existing law. Query, is 16 the right age, Miriam?
I completely agree with it. It's something I actually said should have been done before. And I think what is good about it is that for a long time, a lot of governments have been saying that the actual social media companies should take more responsibility, but they're not going to because it hurts their bottom line. The most voracious users are younger users. So they will pledge that, oh, I'll put the tick box in, but the kid is the one who's going to actually tick the box. So doing something like this is saying that, OK, we will put in legislation that damages your bottom line, and I think it will force the hand because they've said it's only 12 months and they will reevaluate it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. So, according to the Freedom in the Arts Project, many institutions and activist groups have embraced rigid moral and political beliefs. They believe that while society grapples with complex issues like race, gender, religion, climate change and global conflicts, the arts often respond with one-sided, simplistic narratives that dismiss opposing views and, as such, risk alienating audiences. So, joining me now is the co-founder of Freedom in the Arts, Rosie Kay. Welcome to the show, Rosie.
Thank you.
So I talk to people a lot about this because I know a lot of people within the arts. Everyone I speak to knows that this is a problem, but it's difficult to get that message out there. It's just completely normalised. What is the extent of the problem?
OK, so I think the problem's completely vast inside the arts. I mean, I know because it happened to me and it happened to my co-founder, Denise Farmy, who got harassed and sort of discriminated against by the Arts Council. And then we set up Freedom of Arts a year ago, and since then we've had over 50 cases of individuals that we've helped. Sometimes it can be as simple as a letter, but you know, we'll direct them towards Free Speech Union, we'll get lawyers involved. We've seen some really horrific cases. But in order to look at the whole breadth of the problems in the arts, Denise and I decided that we would do a survey that would replicate a survey that was conducted about 5 years ago when a lot of these issues were just coming up, coming to the fore. And we want to see, because we've got one that we can compare it to, have things got better or have things got worse? So I can tell you, just with looking at the interim results so far, so the survey's been out for a couple of weeks, I mean, the vast majority would say that they're at fear of speaking freely. They don't feel they can. And I'd say it's less than 9% say that they can speak freely.
And at the moment, there are particular views that are frowned upon within the arts industries, views such as gender-critical feminism, for instance, that would give you a big black mark. Isn't one of the problems that we're dealing with in an industry where most people are out of work a lot of the time, job security is non-existent? If you're going to submit a script as a writer, for instance, it would have to have the right political message, and you yourself would have to have the right politics. So you end up feigning a certain political view to get commissioned. Isn't that what's going on?
Well, then there's also like a fear of theatres are very worried about any potential controversy. So I've actually had a senior leader in the arts say, but how do I know if this play is going to be OK or not? And I said to her, maybe we should consider bringing back the Lord Chamberlain. And she didn't quite get the joke. But I was like, you know, do you want to have a censorship board that can go through and check and see is this play going to be OK or bad? Or maybe we could start to kind of push back a little bit and be a little bit braver. So you're right, there's lots of forces that conspire to make artists particularly vulnerable. One of them is their financial insecurity. There isn't a lot of diversification in the arts, so we're quite dependent on the Arts Council. And so some of these things are incentivised from on high, but also we really don't have any protection for freedom of expression.
Yes.
That's not built within funding agreements anywhere.
But why do you think that the artists in particular, who are supposed to be the most free-thinking of people, are the ones who are the most conformist, or at least the ones who are the most afraid of hearing a plurality of views?
Well, that is a massive question, and I think people will be writing PhDs on this, you know, in about 20 years. At the moment, I'm starting to fear that it's something even bigger than just groupthink. It does feel like this way of policing people's thoughts, conscience, artistic expression. It is an attack on sort of human creativity itself. I don't think you can be creative if you're constantly policing and self-censoring yourself.
Yes.
And then also there is an environment that artists are also activists, and they are going to jump on you if you say one thing that's outside of the norm of this groupthink. That also it isn't mainstream. I don't think audiences think like this, and I don't think audiences like it very much. But it's very much particular kind of sort of groupthink inside the arts.
Is it possibly also that a lot of activists have promoted the idea that all artistic expression is an opportunity to promote a certain political message? And, you know, the value of something like the Mona Lisa should be perceived in terms of how much it promotes the interests of white men to other white men, just reduced to identity politics.
Well, there's a rewriting of history going on there, isn't there? But I think in any totalitarian or authoritarian state, the arts are used. And I think it's very much a sort of situation where, I mean, all artists should be asking themselves, if I'm only pushing an ideology, surely this is not art, this is propaganda.
Yes. That's a very important point, because Lars von Trier said that when he makes films, one of the things he likes to do is to take a position that he finds indefensible and attempt to defend it through the film.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
But that could get him or any artist in a lot of trouble.
Well, it got me in a lot of trouble. I mean, I've spoken to you before. I mean, I made a work that was based on research with soldiers, and even looking at soldiers 10, 15 years ago was seen as potentially right-wing, despite the fact that we were a country at war. And then, you know, looking at Romeo and Juliet through the lens of sort of contemporary gangs in Birmingham was seen as potentially racist. So I think I'm with you. I mean, I don't think you're doing your job if you aren't on dangerous lines. But what's changed is the pressures around you, both by funders, by boards, by this risk-averse culture. And then, of course, everything gets amplified by social media. I wouldn't say social media is the cause of the problems in the arts, but there's that amplification that no one can kind of deal with. There's this sort of like rabbit in the headlights sense, rather than sort of, well, putting some plans in place and have some management. Everyone's just terrified. And that's when it becomes a pile-on and it becomes really personal. And often that's when you see artists are the individuals that are attacked, and that can be like life-destroying.
And what do you do if you are, by nature, a subversive artist, someone who wants to tease the limits of our tolerance on various issues, but you just... I mean, isn't self-censorship the inevitable outcome of all of this?
Well, I think there's something really awful. Like the artists I know that have just shut up, I think something inside of them dies. So I know that it's not comfortable being out here and speaking. I would love to just be back in the studio making dance. But there's something about actually staying out there speaking that keeps me really energised by it. I know artists that have given up. that have retired, that have immigrated. You know, we could be losing the best artists of our generation simply because the culture of fear is so intense.
Could it not be that venues and promoters could be encouraged to just trust the audience, insofar as if something was on that I would find offensive or distressing, I wouldn't buy a ticket, and the problem is thereby solved? Surely that's what the theatres should be saying.
I'm really laughing because it's like, no, it doesn't work like that at all. there are gatekeepers there. I mean, I think that's going to be the next stage, is that we start to have to kind of really directly speak to our audiences. And in some ways, I suppose, like the way that new media has done this over the past sort of 4 or 5 years in terms of like speaking politically to people, that may be what we need to do in the arts. We're not there yet, sadly.
Yes, but are things getting better? I mean, I've seen some signs that some venues are being a bit more, I suppose, taking more risks when it comes to putting on certain shows.
Well, that's something at Freedom in the Arts we're really wanting to do. So after we've done this survey, we're going to sit in round tables with artists and arts leaders in sort of Chatham House rules, get people to talk to each other, recognise that the issues are going on, like, across the board, across all the sectors, and then hopefully bridge some relationships so that actually if we work collectively, you know, if there's 3 productions going on and we support all of them,
yes,
then people will just be a bit braver.
But the bravery is difficult when you're talking about staff members. I mean, often, you know, if there were some sort of show that was exploring controversial issues around gender and a member of staff says that the existence of that show threatens my life because it makes me unsafe, which is the kind of rhetoric they use, doesn't the venue then have a responsibility to pull the show?
Well, you've got to be asking what they're doing working in a theatre if they can't hold views that are not their own. And I actually have had that accusation thrown at me that my actual presence on stage dancing may make staff feel unsafe. And I actually just put it back to the person and said, well, actually, have you thought about my safety if I'm performing on stage? What if these people attack me? And so we've kind of got into this really, really hostile, horrible situation that I completely disagree with. And it's totally disproportionate as well. For women standing up for their own rights or saying, you know, they want to protect some of their safeguards and single-sex spaces, this is not an attack on trans people. This is, you know, and so it's this disproportionate, like, fear factor which doesn't bear any resemblance to the truth.
So once we've assessed the extent of the problem, and I think you and I know how widespread it is, but to have the data on that would be fantastic.
Yes, exactly.
What do we do then? Is it a case, you know, to go back to the old style of patronage, just to sort of rely on rich, independent donors to fund challenging, subversive art, which maybe a more ideological group like the Arts Council just won't do? Well, I think there's got to be much more diversification of funding in the arts. I agree with that. But I also think that the Arts Council is it has, up until recently, very recently, been a really amazing way to kind of like a pipeline of talent and taking sort of risky work that then feeds into the sort of more commercial spheres. I think that we could bring back impartiality into our arts organisations, and then actually we could quite simply embed something like a free speech clause, that no one's going to get cancelled, that artists are free to express themselves. Put that within the funding agreements, and that would just protect people a little bit more. That's a very interesting idea. I really hope that we can do that. Where can people find out more about your group, Freedom in the Arts?
freedominthearts.com. Just log in and you'll be asked to fill in the survey. So please fill it in.
Rosie Kay, thanks ever so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And next on Free Speech Nation, as a journalist is visited by the police for a tweet, is free speech under threat? We're going to be revisiting that story with a barrister, Sarah Phillimore. Don't go anywhere.
Oh,
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's going to be turning colder for all of us as we head into the new working week, with some sleet and snow in the forecast for some of us and plenty of blustery showers around as well. This is all thanks to this area of low pressure that's moving in from the northwest towards the UK as we go through into the start of Monday and Tuesday. Back to this evening though, a bit of a mixed picture across the UK. Plenty of cloud, some outbreaks of rain sinking their way south and eastwards across the southern half of the UK, but further north staying a little bit drier. Plenty of clear spells around, some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. These likely to turn to sleet and snow over the hills, and it'll be a really chilly start to the morning across parts of Scotland, perhaps as low as -4 or -5 in places. So this could mean some icy stretches, so do take care during Monday morning's rush hour. But further south, a bit of a milder start to the morning, plenty of showery rain around, this perhaps turning heavy across southwestern parts of England. For Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, generally a bit of a drier start to the day though, some sunny spells as we go through the morning. But for Scotland, despite the bright start, it will be a really chilly start. So do take care if you are on the roads during Monday morning's rush hours. There could be some ice on some untreated surfaces. Those sleet and snow showers continue to pile in across northern parts of Scotland throughout all of Monday, and that initial area of rain across the southern areas clears away to the south, but this next area of rain arrives across parts of Northern Ireland, most likely falling as rain. But we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as we go through Monday afternoon. Some sunny spells across eastern areas through the afternoon, but feeling really quite chilly here. Temperatures only around 2 or 3 degrees, but just holding on to that milder air further south. To start on Tuesday, we could see some disruptive snow across northern parts of England, most likely falling over high ground, but there is a chance that we could see sleet and snow to lower levels. So do take care if you are out on Tuesday morning. But Tuesday afternoon, there should be plenty of sunny spells around, but still plenty of blustery showers, particularly across the northern half of the UK. And it will be feeling cooler as we go towards the middle part of the week, with temperatures well below average for the time of year.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. Alison Pearson, a Telegraph journalist, faces a police investigation for a social media post from November 2023. What was originally understood by Alison to be a non-crime hate incident has now been clarified by Essex Police. They are saying that it is not a non-crime hate incident, but that actually this is a potential investigation into stirring up racial hatred online. So joining me now to explore this a little more is the author and family law barrister, Sarah Phillimore. Sarah, welcome to the show. A lot of people, I think, will be confused about the legality here, given that Harry Miller's case at the High Court, my understanding, it was found to be effectively unlawful for the police to record non-crime hate incidents. Have I got that wrong?
A little bit, yes. It wasn't found to be unlawful to record non-crime hate incidents because they were seen as having useful operational value. What was wrong was the perception-based recording of them, i.e. anything that the so-called victim reported had to be recorded, regardless of how mad it was. Remember, Mrs. B, who complained about Harry, was said by the judge in that case to be on the outer edges of rationality. It clearly was a malicious complaint and it should never have been recorded. But they haven't been outlawed in their entirety. What's happened is we had the Court of Appeal victory, then we had a parliamentary code of practice that said, look, you've got to use your common sense, you mustn't record things which are clearly malicious and irrational, and you've got to pay due regard to Article 10, freedom of speech. Now, Suella Braverman was very worried about the way things were going, and she started inquiries in September 2023, and that led to the report of His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, Fire and Rescue, which was published in September 2024. And that was really alarming, because what that said was, of the forces it audited, very few seemed to have any understanding about what was going on. Very few understood their oath of impartiality. They all seemed to find the Equality Act too complicated to understand. And there were far too many non-crime hate incidents being recorded. So we are, it seems, in a complete mess, in that the police are going their own merry way, ignoring a court decision and ignoring a parliamentary code of practice. So it's all extremely worrying.
Can I ask you to clarify on that, Sarah? Because so my understanding is that the guidelines by the College of Policing, drawing on the original Macpherson report from 1999 into the murder of Stephen Lawrence, said that actually what counts in classifying a racist incident, say, is the perception of someone, not any other kind of evidence, but that something is perceived to be racist. And is that really all it takes for the police to act?
Well, that was right then, wasn't it? Because that was following on immediately from the murder of Stephen Lawrence and a finding that the Metropolitan Police were institutionally racist. So they could not be trusted to properly deal with reports. So basically, their choice, their analysis was taken away from them. But Lord Macpherson didn't say that things should simply be recorded and left to sit on a database. He said incidents and crimes should both be investigated. So that was the immediate diversion from what Lord Macpherson actually recommended. The barrister for the College of Policing in the Court of Appeal conceded that there were so many non-crime hate incidents recorded, it was impossible for any force to analyse them. So to argue, as the College of Policing and senior police officers have consistently done, that these represent vital operational intelligence is a simple nonsense that a child could see through. They are simply stuck on a database and potentially, and here's the rub, potentially disclosed to other people like potential employers. And that was the thing that frightened me and Harry so much, was that nobody could tell us when these incidents would be disclosed. And I'm furious now because 2 years ago I had to spend nearly £50,000 getting Wiltshire Police to delete from its records absurd and risible recordings such as "My dog will call me a Nazi for cheese." That was recorded by the police under the heading of hatred towards transgender individuals.
And that was a non-crime hate incident that was recorded against your name?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's a joke, but the document was titled a barrister posting hate. So if that had been disclosed to any potential employer, if I wanted to apply to be a judge, that's what they would have seen. Now, I said I had to spend £50,000. Thank God I didn't. Thank God for crowdfunding, and that I was able to raise that money by the great generosity of members of the public. But I'm now furious. Why on earth was Harry Miller put through the ringer? And he stood to lose a lot more than I did because his case went all the way to the Court of Appeal. If he had lost, he would have lost his house. I didn't even get to court, thankfully, because they folded after the Court of Appeal victory. But why now, in November 2024, are we having this discussion when this entire issue was put to bed?
Absolutely. And Sarah, I think we are out of time, but I'm sure that you'll be coming back on to discuss this because it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. Sarah Phillimore, thanks ever so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And next on Free Speech Nation, it's time for social sensations and unfiltered dilemmas. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel. I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now we're joined now by Sophia Viraji, the co-founder of the Azealia Foundation, which was created due to the tragic passing of her 8-month-old daughter to leukemia. The foundation is doing some incredible work for children's cancer.
Yeah, some really incredible stuff. They've just launched a PhD even where they're funding young doctors to specialise in childhood cancer as, get this, I wasn't aware of this, it's one of the most underfunded areas in the NHS. So not many sectors choose to go down that route, unfortunately. The charity, the foundation, have donated over £1 million worth of equipment to hospitals as well, and we're delighted to welcome Sophia. You've turned a tragedy and grief into triumph, I guess, and something so inspiring. Just tell us about that. Do you recognise that in yourself and the work you're doing?
Yeah, I'm here to always honour my daughter and to always continue her name, her legacy, and to support all of these other children fighting against childhood cancer.
It was all over social media. I mean, you were, at one point, probably one of the most famous families in this country because of Azealia and Azalia's fight. When you look back now at that time, does it give you comfort that you had so many people behind you?
Absolutely. The community that we have got the humanity that we've seen in the UK and all around the world, in fact, has really touched my heart. And that kindness, love and support has always been the backbone of carrying me through this, to give me hope, to give me belief. And it still inspires me and encourages me till today to continue to do that, to show that light, to show that courage and bravery.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final part of Free Speech Nation. It's time for Social Sensations. That's where we look at what's been going viral this week on social media. So let's have a look at this video. A Georgian politician in Georgia, throwing something. Let's have a look. I mean, it's all very exciting and everything, but, you know, when those sorts of things happen, you do forget that sometimes you don't know what that substance could be. No. It could be toxic. It was like when... Who was it who threw sort of purple powder in Parliament and at the Prime Minister? Do you remember that? It was about 10 years ago, and people were saying, you know, it could be anything, you know?
Well, that's it. I don't think it's funny. Don't think it's a social sensation.
Well, it went viral, so we have to talk about it, really. It did go viral.
Around, yeah. And apparently they were accusing him of being a black spot on democracy. That's the...
Oh, is that the symbolism?
The dark paint, apparently.
OK, I see.
Don't know what he's done.
But it's a bit like the Just Stop Oil stuff.
Yeah, yeah, very much.
Yeah, terrible behaviour. OK, we're going to move on to this one now. This is from some baking show.
I'm just going to add a little bit of happiness in there.
She fell off.
Don't come over here! Leave me! Leave me!
Oh, God love her. That's Alison Hammond, like a gazelle.
A gazelle that's been on the newly meat-infused McDonald's fries.
It's very... Look, if I attempted to move like that, I would fall off as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have tried on it. You see me do on here. Some of the lap dancing I've done is exquisite, but I've not fallen off.
It is exquisite and arousing. What do you think?
Well, I hope she's OK.
Yes.
She seemed in very good spirits about it, didn't she? She was laughing on the floor.
Isn't that funny? It wouldn't be funny anymore if she hurt herself, but she's OK.
Yes.
She seemed to enjoy it.
Important.
So let's go over now, because coming up tonight is Mark Dolan. Mark, what will you be chatting about tonight?
Andrew, what a treat to be part of Free Speech Nation. Well, we pick up the baton at 9. In my big opinion, the Chancellor tells us she's an experienced economist, but has she been economical with the truth?
Mark, can't wait. Thanks for that. And thanks for joining us for Free Speech Nation. Thanks ever so much to my panellists and also to my wonderful guests. Paul and Cressida, as usual, have been absolutely fantastic. By the way, if you want to join us live in the studio and be part of our wonderful audience, that's dead easy. Just go to sroaudiences.com. You can apply there and come along and join in. Stay tuned for Mark Dolan. He's coming up in just one moment. Don't forget, Headliners is on every night at 11 o'clock. That's the late-night paper preview show where comedians talk you through the next day's top news stories. Thanks ever so much for watching Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. I will see you next week.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. So it's going to be turning colder for all of us as we head into the new working week, with some sleet and snow in the forecast for some of us and plenty of blustery showers around as well. This is all thanks to this area of low pressure that's moving in from the northwest towards the UK as we go through into the start of Monday and Tuesday. Back to this evening though, a bit of a mixed picture across the UK. Plenty of cloud, some outbreaks of rain sinking their way south and eastwards across the southern half of the UK, but further north staying a little bit drier. drier, plenty of clear spells around, some blustery showers across the far north of Scotland. These likely to turn to sleet and snow over the hills, and it'll be a really chilly start to the morning across parts of Scotland, perhaps as low as -4 or -5 in places. So this could mean some icy stretches, so do take care during Monday morning's rush hour. But further south, a bit of a milder start to the morning, plenty of showery rain around, this perhaps turning heavy across southwestern parts of England. For Northern Ireland, northern parts of England, generally a bit of a drier start to the day though, some sunny spells as we go through the morning. But for Scotland, despite the bright start, it will be a really chilly start, so do take care if you are on the roads during Monday morning's rush hours. There could be some ice on some untreated surfaces. Those sleet and snow showers continue to pile in across northern parts of Scotland throughout all of Monday, and that initial area of rain across the southern areas clears away to the south, but this next area of rain arrives across parts of Northern Ireland, most likely falling as rain. But we could see some sleet and snow over the hills as we go through Monday afternoon. Some sunny spells across eastern areas through the afternoon, but feeling really quite chilly here. Temperatures only around 2 or 3 degrees, but just holding on to that milder air further south. To start on Tuesday, we could see some disruptive snow across northern parts of England, most likely falling over high ground, but there is a chance that we could see sleet and snow to lower levels, so do take care if you are out on Tuesday morning. But Tuesday afternoon, there should be plenty of sunny spells around, but still plenty of blustery showers, particularly across the northern half of the UK, and it will be feeling cooler as we go towards the middle part of the week, with temperatures well below average for the time of year.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be